Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Mr. Grey and I'm joined by Mr. Red
Hello.
and Mr. Black.
Good evening or afternoon. Is it afternoon? Evening? Who cares?
Well,
It's,
it's after 12 midday, so
It's the afternoon.
afternoon.
Right, so we have a set of true or false stories. Basically means we will be each telling a story from the news or from history or from something like that, and we will basically have to guess whether the person is telling the truth or not. So, who's first?
I'll go first because my iPad battery's going to die.
That's a very good excuse to go first. All right,
Yes.
Mr. Black, let's,
Very professional.
take it away.
Right, so I figured I would try and bamboozle you a little bit differently this week. I've got two very short stories, but one of them is true and one of them is false. You have to guess which one.
All right.
All right. So, story number one is Ben Franklin invented a glass violin that killed people.
Ben Franklin, that's Benjamin Franklin, as in the guy who was involved with American independence.
Aye, that guy.
Right.
Yeah. The guy in the note.
The $100 note, I believe
Yeah.
it was.
And the other story is Britain designed a nuke filled with chickens.
Right. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Give us the details. So, what was this violin all about?
So the violin, it was made of glass, just called the glass violin. And they noticed after he created about like 3,000 of them, and started to notice that after a while, people who had been around the sound of this violin being played, and people who had played it were starting to just die,
Right.
pretty much. All right.
So, what was special about this violin? Was it just a violin made of glass?
Yeah, but they were basically saying that the frequencies of this instrument would pretty much affect your brain. It would cause you nausea. It would upset your bowels. So you literally get diarrhea from listening to it. And it could put some people in a coma.
Right.
And some people were even left with permanent brain damage or else just died.
Just because it made a weird glassy noise.
Yeah. And some people also speculated that it also, some components of it were made of lead and people got lead poisoning from it and died that way as well.
Well, to be honest, I think back then, most things were made of lead.
Yeah.
Lead pipes and lead toys for children. They had lead makeup. I think it might have been after the lead makeup phase.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the point is they had an awful lot of lead in the world, I think.
Yeah.
It led to serious problems.
It did indeed.
Very serious problems.
It wasn't down to like, well, I suppose that kind of covers it. There might have been something in the string that was rubbed off and then people inhaled it.
So
Yeah, pretty much. But
he made 3,000 of these?
pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Well, not personally, I guess. He
Well,
He
no,
didn't,
yeah,
and he
for-
didn't. He didn't patent it either. He just made about 3,000 of them and sold them.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
he was a notorious inventor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
he's a bit of an
well-
eccentric as well, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Uh huh. And apparently, some people were saying that the high pitch trills of this instrument could summon ghosts and summon evil spirits, and some were very wary about that as well.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that bit's false before we get to the end of the story.
Well, I can imagine people believing it back then.
Well, some said, some were saying because they were a very superstitious lot. But yeah,
Right, okay. And tell us about this nuke with the chickens.
well, the British wanted to create a nuclear bomb
Right?
that it basically worked as a kind of landmine type thing, and they wanted to leave it behind enemy lines and leave it there should they have to retreat. And basically the idea was they would then have a big long cable going back home to where base was, and they would then set off the reaction or
Right.
set off like a timer, and then what would end up happening is people who were up front on the lines, including civilians, would pretty much have like a set time, like a load of 2 to 4 hours or something like that, to basically retreat and get away. But the reason why they wanted to fill it with chickens is because they were concerned of temperature, the temperature not interfering with the electronics.
So chickens was the best insulator they could think of.
Yeah, because they were going to put chicken feed inside it to sustain the chickens for a number of days. And if anybody in enemy territory were to question, because these things were massive,
Yeah.
so they weren't really, they weren't able to bury them like landmines. They were pretty much just sat there. and they just told people that they were just generators.
With chickens in them.
Well, no, they were sealed. Chickens were inside.
Oh, right, okay.
What did the chickens contribute in? Sorry.
They kept it warm inside
Okay.
because they were just like
Just warm,
chicken
warm
in the way
bodies.
inside it. Yeah, but it presented a whole host of problems. So
Really?
that they didn't really go through with it in the end. But they designed it and they were going to implement it. But then they were like, nah, like let's not do this.
So the guy drew the picture of it, and then how much further did it get? Did they make a scale model or something?
Yeah. Mid-scale model, but they never shipped it out because, well, there was a fail-safe in it that presented a load of problems. Obviously, you need the soldiers to put it there, and there was a fail-safe that basically meant if anyone tampered with it, the timer would drop right down to 10 minutes, and
Right.
it would go off in 10 minutes. And it would just take like a chicken crapping in the wrong place, or somebody literally trying to open it up, be like, "Ooh!" Like
It sounds like a bit of a design flaw with a nuke.
so. Yeah,
So when was this?
it was like World War something two, World War Two,
World War something.
World War Two,
Okay.
World War Two. It was World War Two towards the end.
Right. Okay. That is sounding a little bit suspect. I mean, I know they came up with a lot of crazy ideas during the Second World War, but keeping a bomb warm with live chickens seems a bit silly. Surely they would have had, if they wanted to keep something warm to say a body temperature, which it would be, they could use electricity. Surely they could have a battery that was strong enough to keep something warm for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah, but well, I know. Well, when I do say the end of the war, I do mean,
Do you mean after the war?
yeah, like Cold War, but it was like sort of early Cold War. Like it was new, it was fashionable. So yeah,
All right.
So
So
it's not World War II. It's Cold War.
Cold War era,
Yeah.
but like
50s
early.
and 60s. Then.
Yeah. So like and
There's a big difference there because I would have just said that's false because there only was 2 nuclear bombs,
yeah.
and neither of them had chickens in them. So
Yeah. So they're pretty much just they would put them there just as like a kind of fail safe. Like, well, if we know they're going to invade, then
All right.
yeah.
One more question about this from me. Where were they planning to put them?
No more questions about the violin. Where were they planning to put them?
Yeah.
well, if it's Cold War, I'm going to assume probably across somewhere in Europe to stop the
Well,
Soviets
was it?
advancing.
There was like parts of Germany that were bad still, weren't there? So
Yes, the bad side of Germany.
there was like a rough bit that nobody liked going.
Yeah, okay, so it was basically Eastern Europe at the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there was like a good bit of Germany, and the Allies were there, and there was like a bad, like I think there was like Russians there, and they didn't like the Russians or something,
Right, okay.
because it was Cold War. So they stuck the nukes.
They were very cold towards each other.
Yes, cold shoulder. So they stuck the chicken nukes behind the enemy lines, and that if they got word they were going to invade, then it was like, right, set off the chickens.
Right, okay. I mean, I don't know what more to ask, to be honest. Mr. Red, have you got anything to add to this?
Apart from the chickens, it kind of sounds like the plot out of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, leaving nukes behind in cities to detonate them if the Soviets were to.
Filled with chickens.
No, they weren't filled with chickens. Well, they didn't say they were filled with chickens in the game.
But they were though.
It wouldn't surprise me though that.
But they didn't actually leave nukes behind, did they?
Not that I've heard of, but it actually wouldn't surprise me if they did do that. But just it was never public.
Probably because they've, if they've released to the public, there were fucking chickens inside the bombs.
Well,
and
not the chicken part, just leaving nukes in the city to detonate them if the Soviets were to invade. Even if they were to tell people now, I think there'd be a lot of unhappy people.
Well, Mr. Red, I know which way I'm leaning on this one. I mean, the Benjamin Franklin one with the glass violins. I mean, you've pretty much explained that idea. That seems to be pretty sensible.
I've had summoning ghosts and all.
Well, summoning ghost thing, man, that's just superstitious times, isn't it?
Yeah. And it killed you if you heard it.
Yeah, that's it. It does seem silly, but and again, it's coming from that time in America where people were kind of a bit weird.
Well, see, going back to the nuke thing, he said it was an idea and there was a prototype of it done, but it never got.
That was it.
That was it. Never got rolled out. So I can actually imagine a prototype of something like that being made, and then them discovering very quickly the very obvious flaws with it. As we know, they're not averse to using animals in times of war.
That's true. But just it's just okay. I'm gonna say that the violin story is true.
I kind of want to say the violent story is true because Benjamin Franklin did produce a lot of
Shit.
stuff.
What else did he make?
I can't remember.
He didn't do the light bulb, did he? It was him.
No, what he's famous for is discovering electricity in inverted quotes.
Yeah, well, basically he flew a kite in the lightning storm and got a shock.
I don't even believe...
Edison was the light bulb, wasn't he?
Well, he claims to have invented the light bulb.
Yeah.
Edison was he was a bit more like an Elon Musk sort of guy.
I don't even know.
He didn't really invent anything.
No,
he was
there was
just the businessman behind it.
Yeah.
The light bulb was kind of like a stolen idea. He made like the filament light bulb that was designed to break after a certain amount of time. Edison.
I don't think he designed it to break. I think that was just a flaw in it.
All right.
But then somebody else came along and made the tungsten filament light bulb that lasted a lot longer. No, but he was basically more of a businessman than an idea man.
Well, maybe that's why his violin killed people.
Oh no, Benjamin Franklin. I think a lot of stories about him are exaggerated. I don't even know if the kite thing is true.
I don't know.
I think if he got hit by the kite, surely he would have died. Surely.
Well, if he got hit by a kite, I think he would have been, maybe a bump in the head or something. But
no, but like if lightning struck the kite, the lightning has to go somewhere. It's not just going to stop at the kite, so it would have killed him.
And I don't even believe he's the first person to have actually discovered electricity.
Well, anyway, so Mr. Black, what is the true story?
I haven't.
Oh well.
I'm gonna go with the chicken one. Chicken nukes.
The chicken nuke.
No, because it was only an idea. Whereas
you think it's possible that it could have been an idea?
It could have been an idea. Yes.
Forgot to say, there are a couple of people who play the glass violin today, but they're modernized versions of it.
They do it while wearing big, heavy earmuffs or something. So, are they true? Is it true?
You're going with chickens?
I want to go with the chickens, yeah.
And you're going with
I'll go with the violin.
The chicken bomb story is true. The violin one is made up.
No way.
Yeah.
That's insane. I can't believe that somebody thought it would be a good idea to moderate the temperature of a nuclear weapon with chickens. That's stupid.
Yep, it was during the Cold War. Tensions were high in Germany between the Western and the Soviets,
mm-hmm.
And so
basically, it was just a way of making a nuclear mine.
Yeah,
if the Soviets did push ahead into war, then they could have just nuked the city. Again, I don't know if they actually put that into practice. I don't think they would ever tell anybody if they did put that into practice, because I would imagine there'd be a lot of very angry civilians if they did. So no, that doesn't really surprise me. No, it doesn't. It wouldn't surprise me if Benjamin Franklin did invent or made a glass violin, because we'll look at some of his inventions here.
He did make a glass instrument, but it wasn't a glass violin.
What was it?
A glass
harmonica.
Or
harmonica today.
Oh, okay.
But it's like this big, long, xylophone-looking thing.
Alrighty. Well, shall we move on to the next
Apparently,
story?
he invented the Franklin stove, the Franklin electrostatic machine, hand paddles, glass harmonica, and lightning rod.
Nice.
Alrighty.
And just want to look up the kite story here for a second.
I was really hoping I was going to get both of yous, but
I'm just looking it up here. Apparently, there's quite a few sources here saying he didn't actually get struck by lightning.
Well, long as he be dead.
It's just a popularized myth.
Alrighty.
There you go.
Well, shall we move on?
Yes.
Who's next?
It's me, I think.
Mr. Gray.
All right. Well, I've only got one story, so you'll have to figure out whether it's real or not. So, this takes place in the sunny country of Australia, land of the spiders and the kangaroos.
Does somebody get tuckered?
No. Well, basically, this old couple, are going out for a meal, right? And they were using their new sat-nav technology. Well, it's in their phone, their iPhone, and they were following the sat-nav like really, really closely because they've never done it before. So they were following the sat-nav, trying to get to the place where they wanted to go.
Is this recently or like?
This was back in 2018.
Oh, right, okay.
So before all this lockdown silliness happened, and Australia was open for business, so they wanted to go to this place called Nathan's Grill, It's not very fancy, but it's Australia, so what can you do?
Could have just stayed home and put a shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah.
As a racist.
And it's Nathan's Grill is in the Harbourside Mall, okay, which is quite a big shopping mall.
Where was this?
In Sydney, Australia. Sorry, city of Sydney.
Oh, is this like Darling Harbour? I think I've actually been in that mall.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, they were looking for a place called Nathan's Grill. They went into the mall. And they found they were walking about, and they were following the sat nav, but they were walking basically to the end of the long mall.
Yeah.
But then they look at their phone. They couldn't see the restaurant anywhere, and the pointer for the restaurant was like a good 20 meters away, but it looked like it was on the other side of the wall, outside the mall. So, so they diligently followed their sat nav. They went outside the mall, and there was a door right, pretty much exactly where the point was.
Yeah.
For the sat nav. So they walked inside. There was no one there to greet them, to say, would you like a table or anything like that. So they went in, took a seat at a table, and it turns out they kind of got the wrong place because they were served. A man walked up onto a stage in the middle of the place, wearing nothing but a thong, and he was very muscly and covered in oil, and started doing a very sensual dance. Of course, there's a poor, what was her name? Betty Cooper and her husband Gareth. Betty is, at the time, actually says here, Betty Cooper, mother of four, as if that was important. Betty Cooper, mother of four, who was 79 years old at the time, was very shocked and very upset that this mostly naked man was on stage dancing around. It was and didn't, so clearly it wasn't Nathan's Grill that they'd ended up in.
What was the husband's response to this? He was loving it.
Well, I've got some quotes here. Gareth Cooper says, you'll have to imagine an Australian accent here. I was looking forward to a meal and a cold one.
Do an Australian accent.
I can't do an Australian
Go
accent.
for
I'll
it.
turn into South African or something. I was
Do
looking
another
forward
one,
to a
mate.
meal and a cold one, but my wife was put off by the bloke in the budgie smugglers. Says Gareth. From the sounds of things, it looks like he actually wasn't put off that much. It was Betty that said, "I've never been more embarrassed in my life." Apparently,
Were the kids with them?
oh no.
Yeah, that would be weird if they were
grown up kids. They're all off on their own. So they wanted to go to Nathan's Grill. They ended up in a club called Magic Men. So it's basically a strip club for attractive men.
Was Mike there?
No, we don't have the name of the stripper, sadly.
Was the stripper group called Thunder Down Under?
Well, what we do have though is we've got, of course, following the sat nav, they were very distressed, so they phoned up Apple customer service, who had a very strange response. They said, "We are sorry for the distressing situation." Looks like the son here has got in contact with Apple support. We're sorry for the situation the Coopers were put under. We are aware of the problem with the satellite navigation on our devices, but this is related to continental drift and is not something we are able to control.
So they're 20 feet then? 20
Yeah.
meters?
Well, apparently the Australian continent.
Had drifted 20 feet from the original GPS
Meters?
data?
It's
Or
it's not.
is it feet or meters?
It's feet.
Feet.
The sat nav. I've been reading into this. It's actually kind of interesting if you're interested in continental drift. The sat nav positioning was actually set in 1994,
Okay.
and the Australian continent has been moving 3 centimeters every single year since then, or something like that. It's been moving a very long way, or it wasn't 3 centimeters. It might have been 3 inches actually every single year until 2018. So from 1994 to 2018, you've got. What's that? 24 years. So 24 years times 3 inches it's quite a long way.
Well, it's what,
Quick
12,
math.
12 inches in a foot. So
Yeah. So 3 times 24 is 70 something. 60.
Oh.
We're good at maths here. 75. 72 inches. 72 divided by 12 is 6 feet, apparently. 6 feet is enough. That is totally put off the sat nav, and they got the wrong door, basically.
So it wasn't 20 feet, it was 6 feet.
Did they not check the sign?
Well, they were following the sat nav. Apparently, Nathan's Grill was on the top floor of the mall, and they were just walking along the bottom.
Oh, right, and they walked in. Okay.
Yeah. So,
But then,
But that's not really the sat-nav's problem. If it's 2-story mall,
yeah.
then they should have just looked at the sign like, this isn't Nathan's Grill.
Yeah, you would have thought
And
that.
then be like, oh, it must be upstairs.
I'm pretty sure for like a strip club as well, you'd see like pictures of guys in front with their budgie smugglers, like instead of pictures of ribs.
Well, yeah, you would have thought that, but obviously they were just staring at their phones.
Well,
They
you could have
weren't
seen pictures of ribs if they were really slim, really lean.
Yeah, take a deep breath in. I'm sure they would have seen some ribs.
Among other things.
Yeah.
What do you think? I don't buy it. Plus, you also initially said meters, and then you changed it to feet
Well,
earlier on. Unless you misspoke, but that was a little
I think you're applying something you've read and made a story out of it.
very creative story. But then, if this is true, I really have to question the intelligence of these people that wandered into a strip club instead of a restaurant.
That's that's the more disappointing.
Unless
thing
they were
here,
just
that
really,
monster.
their eyesight was awful, and they just,
well, yeah.
You also said you were reading up a lot on Continental Drift. That's really interesting.
Well,
so-
yeah, well,
True.
well, you read a story like this, you think, "What? That sounds ridiculous," and then you have to look it up to make sure there's no way. So,
I'm gonna go with false.
gonna go false, Mr. Black.
Yeah, I'm gonna go false. I don't know if. Nah, I don't really buy it.
Though, it was Apple that contacted, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was it? Yeah, and they gave a response that sounded. No, I reckon this is something you've read and you've made up a story about it. So the Continental Drift part and all is true, and it might have been to do with somebody else, but the whole stripper bit, I think, is you. So I'm gonna go false.
Well, Mr. Red, you've rumbled me. That's exactly what happened. The continental drift thing is actually true. The Australian continent is moving at a breakneck speed compared to everywhere else in the world. And it's put off sat navs. But Betty Cooper and Gareth Cooper and their antics in the strip club are completely false.
Thank the Lord. Thought somebody was traumatized.
Did you give an answer? You said.
Yeah, I said I don't buy it.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Wah, wah, wah.
I'll have to try better next time. Then.
Oh well, there's always next time.
Right, so we're on to me then.
Oh yes.
Right, my story takes place during the Second World War.
Oh, of course it does.
What do you mean? Of course it does.
Every story takes place in the war.
No.
We're not still in the war, you know that? Like, well, we'll see.
Did we ever leave the war? Who knows?
Aren't we?
Mine follows Sergeant James Allen Ward. He was the second pilot of a Wellington bomber. And in July 1941, he was in a raid over Germany on the town of Mischnik, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mischnik? Mischnik?
Mishnik?
Mischner?
Mishnik?
Mischnik or Mischner?
Mish.
It's
How's this spelled?
Munster. Mischner? Mischnik?
Muster?
It's a Mister.
Mischner.
Mus? Muster? Like mustard?
But it has
mustard?
it has the two little eyes above it.
Or Mooster.
Mischner.
Muster.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, pronunciation aside, they were on a raid over that town. Raid was successful. However, on the way back, Sergeant Ward's bomber came under attack by a night fighter, which managed to damage one of the fuel tanks and opened one of the fuel lines and started a fire. The crew attempted to put out a fire with fire extinguishers from inside the plane. There was a lot of holes made by the fighter from the plane, on the plane, and they were unsuccessful in putting it out with extinguisher.
So they peed on it.
No. So with things looking rather grave, the captain of the bomber ordered the crew to bail out. Sergeant Ward, though, had an idea, and the captain gave him a go-ahead for it
Right.
in order to try and save the bomber. So what Sergeant Ward did was he got an axe, he got a rope, he got an engine cover, he tied the rope to the inside of the bomber, he tied the rope to himself, and he climbed out of the Astrodome at the top of the plane, climbed his way down the side of the fuselage, onto the wing, using the axe to make holes in the fabric of the wing so he can get his hands and feet in to hold on.
Right.
He then made his way across the wing and managed to stuff the engine cover into the blazing inferno to smother the flames. And this managed to put out the fire. He then crawled back into the plane.
Right.
The bomber managed to make it back to England and made a crash landing in a field.
So he crashed anyway.
Well, they managed to save the crew. So this was 1941. Germans occupied Europe. If they had bailed out over Europe, they would have probably ended up in POW camps.
Did he die?
No, he got back into the plane. The plane crashed when they made it back to England. All the crew survived unharmed, and
Including him, though?
including him, yes.
Wow.
And Sergeant Ward was rewarded with a Victoria Cross.
And a large bill.
So he basically put out the fire.
He put out the fire on the wing, saving the crew from having to bail out and get captured by the Germans. Did try to save the plane, but they had to make an emergency landing.
Oh,
The bomber was a write-off.
where did they manage to land again?
In a field. There was a makeshift runway on a field. I can't remember the name of the...
Oh, well, whereabouts? I guess it was behind.
It was in the south of
friendly
England.
lines.
It was in the south of England. So
right.
literally, they just made it back to the coast, and I believe it was a makeshift airfield. And it just slid on
Okay.
And the bomber was a write-off, but the crew were fine.
I don't know what to think. Well, I know. I don't think it's true.
So basically, climbed out of the plane like Father Ted.
Yes, so either we were attacked by a night fighter as well. So this is in the middle of the night.
You used 2 inches of sticky tape.
For those unaware of what a night fighter is, a night fighter it's got
Someone fights at night.
Well, it's a plane's got rudimentary radar on it, so it can track targets at night.
You know, to be fair, I don't think visibility would have been a problem considering there was a raging inferno that he had to put out.
What's rudimentary radar? What do you mean?
It would just been a very basic radar.
Did they have radar in planes back then?
They did.
They had
Very rudimentary ones.
They had big radar. The British kind of invented radar. Small plane-sized radar? I don't know.
If you look up pictures of night fighters, you'll see they just have a little bit of a radar antenna on the nose of the plane, and then it would feed back a basic blip on this small screen.
What was the
High-tech.
enemy attack fighter plane called?
It was a BF-109.
What was this whole night thing about? What is it again?
It's a night fighter.
A night fighter is what it's called?
Yeah, so it's equipped with rudimentary radar, and as far as I understand it, it has a radar antenna on the front of the nose of the plane, which then feeds back onto a small screen and it'll give you a small blip. Didn't work very far, but it allowed you to at least track a target at night.
Wasn't called Operation Night Fighter, man, was it?
No. I'm just going to point out that regardless of the rest of the story, the night fighter is a real thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Okay.
the rest of it's bullshit.
No, I said regardless if it is true or false.
That is just one story.
I'm not
So
sure.
basically, this guy climbed out onto the wing and stopped the fuel line from being on fire with an engine cover, crawled back in. The bomber managed to make it back to England, just about.
Just on one engine, I guess.
At night time?
I'm assuming so. At night time, and managed to crash in what I understand was a makeshift airfield. And the crew were fine, so basically this man saved his crew from being captured by the Germans, because if they had to be bailed out over Europe, they would have been captured and sent to a POW camp.
Oh, what's the guy's name?
Sergeant James Allen Ward.
Was the fire going the whole way?
No, so they had a successful raid, and on return they were attacked by a night fighter.
But on the way back, were they burning the whole way back till they landed?
No, he put the fire
Put
out.
the fire out. Obviously, the engine was broken.
No, well, it hit
Fuel line.
the fuel line. Well, fuel tank got hit, and there was fire coming out of the fuel line.
It's quite an incredible story. Quite brave, you know.
To be a bit too incredible, I think.
I don't know.
That's why you got a Victoria Cross.
I can imagine it. I mean, stepping out onto the side of the plane while it's all well. I mean, what's the alternative? You know, I mean, if you don't do that, you're going to get caught by the Germans or crash and burn, which
So
would be. So you know, I mean,
He got an engine cover. He got a rope.
yeah.
Tied himself up to the rope. Climbed out of the Astrodome. Had an axe.
Or-
Used it to beat
Used it
holes
as-
into the felt.
Yeah, basically like a climbing hook.
Yep. So he could get his footing.
I can imagine it happening. I'll say true on this one.
I don't think it's true.
Oh, one more thing. Does the plane have a name? Because that's always quite fun.
I'm unaware of the plane's name, but it is a Wellington bomber.
Well, I'll still say true. It's still.
You sure it wasn't Batman?
There's no bats involved.
Nah, I don't buy it.
You know bat?
No, I don't buy it.
Well,
I know you love me too because it's bullshit, isn't it?
I could love to tell you that it is true.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Well, did he capture it in his GoPro? Because it sounds like bullshit.
Well, no, but his commanding officer recommended him for the Victoria Cross, and he was awarded it. So he is Sergeant James Allen Ward, VC. But unfortunately, he was killed in September of 1941
Oh.
during another raid over Hamburg, commanding his own Wellington bomber. It was, as far as I understand, it was hit directly with a flak and destroyed.
Oh, sad times.
After his heroic feat, he passed away 2 months later
Oh, it's just.
at the age of 22.
Oh, it's just quite. That's quite sad. But still, it was pretty heroic, pretty awesome. Did any of the?
Other fun facts is he was a New Zealander, and he was on number 75 Bomber Squadron.
What happened to his crew? Did they survive?
Yeah, they all lived.
I'm
according to-
unaware of what happened to his crew after the incident. They may have went off. He went on to command his own bomber, so I have no idea what happened to them. But just to prove, there's the photo of the plane.
Excellent. Oh wow,
And you
with
can
all the axe holes in it. That's brilliant.
Nice. Wow. What a hero.
Deserve that medal.
Oh yes. Well, guys, what do you think? Do you think you could climb out on the side of a bomber in order to not get captured by the Germans?
Well, in order to not die a fiery death by crashing into the ground with a broken fuel line, yes.
Well, the thing is, though, they could have bailed out parachutes, so they could have just bailed
that's
out
true.
and left the bomber behind. But
That
they
would
did
have
try
been
to
cool.
save the bomber. Well, I think initially they were trying to get back to England, so they didn't have to jump out over occupied Europe.
Yeah, because that would have been a bit difficult.
Well, you would have been in a POW camp until the end of the war.
Arguably safer than being in a bomb. But there you go.
Well,
Well, on that wonderful story of heroism, I believe it is time to call an end.
yeah. Good one.
Until next time.
Until next time, whenever that may be.
Adios.
Stay frosty.